Ladies and gentlemen, this is truly unbelievable, although if you have been following the news the past, 2, 3, 4 years, it's to be expected. James Okeef of Project Vertias, who just came out with an expose on CNN with people working at CNN, a person working at CNN stating their only goal was to ensure that Trump lost and that Biden won, and that they were proud of having contributed to Trump's loss, and that they were spewing just propaganda. It's their words, like whenever it's the DNC emails with their words showing that they railroaded their own candidate and cheated their own candidate in Bernie Sanders, well, it was a Russian plot. You can't look over there. Don't look at the actual words of Democrats, which are unprecedented. You do not find the RNC emails because they don't exist. They didn't cheat. They tried to cheat. They tried to undermine Trump. That didn't work. But they didn't go to the lengths they did against Bernie Sanders. The Democratic Party is taking corruption to a whole new level. And they get away with it because they have almost universally favorable media coverage. Almost universally favorable media coverage. But the DNC emails, oh my God, that's Putin's. That's what Putin wants you to know. Russia was so interested in trying to tell Americans that Democrats were undermining their own candidate, and it wasn't that the primary in 2016 was not fair and neutral. Actually, it was the antithesis of fair and neutral. Then Hunter Biden's emails, oh my goodness, the Putin again. It's Russian disinformation again. You have to be a complete imbecile to believe. This is what a demagogue does. This is what a despot and totalitarian and authoritarian regime does. They blame others for their failures or for incriminating evidence that points to their corruption. So then they say, oh my goodness, Hunter Biden's emails? No, those aren't incriminating pay-to-play emails. Not nepotism, very big difference. This is pay-to-play schemes. I give 10% to the big man. Thanks for allowing us to meet your father. It was an honor. How can you use your influence on behalf of the company? It's right there in the emails. Oh, of course, no. The New York Post gets their account suspended. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. You have James Okeef be suspended. Why? For allegedly, and we'll read the article. This is a Daily Beast article. Twitter permanently bans Project Veritas founder James Okeef. The social media site said Okeef was booted for operating fake accounts. And so now James Okeef is going to sue Twitter for defamation. Not long ago, I wonder if they booted accounts that were fake associated with the Democratic Party and Clinton. Los Angeles Times, be nice to Hillary Clinton online or risk a confrontation with her super PAC. This is May 9th, 2016, when the internet's legions of Hillary hecklers steal away to chat rooms and Facebook pages to vent grievances about Clinton, express revulsion towards Clinton, and launch attacks. They now may find themselves in a surprising place, confronted by a multi-million-dollar super PAC working with Clinton. This, correct the record, was all about bots and fake profiles, simply to defend Madam Secretary. You're talking about the biggest hypocrites on the planet. Twitter is the most dystopian. It's a cauldron. It's a boiling pot. It is a cyberspace or cyber reality that is the opposite, the antithesis of actual reality. It's Tron for the most morally superior, apoplectic, seething, fuming, disgruntled liberal Democrats. Remember the movie Tron? They're living in their own video game. It's called Twitter. And ideas that make no sense at all, fueled by just hysteria and emotion and the desire to become morally superior. See, they don't really care about, this whole thing is about emotion, generating emotion, specifically the emotions associated with feeling morally superior. So that if you feel that you're doing something and you're combating evil or you're on the side of justice, you're capable of virtually anything. even the most heinous and atrocious and terrible, evil behavior. And what Democrats do is that they focus, so they're accusing James O'Keefe of creating accounts. See, they find some way to get him. So the CNN expose, that was actually legitimate. This wasn't the only time that he did that. He actually got the CNN brass to admit they went after. They're going to suppress anything detrimental to Biden and amplify anything detrimental to Trump. We heard those recordings already. Okay, they claim that he with James O'Keefe, they claim that he deceptively edits videos. Nobody deceptively edits videos more than mainstream. 60 Minutes accused Ron DeSantis. I mean, this is amazing. They accused Ron DeSantis of a pay-to-play scheme with deceptively edited video, and they were it wasn't even. They tried to use his words against him, and it was such an epic fail that nobody talked about it. They didn't. None of the mainstream press, New York Times, Washington Post. They didn't talk about what 60 Minutes tried to do. When they say that Trump said that the 1930s and 1940s Germans on that fateful day were fine people, they never even run the C-SPAN actual footage. The C-SPAN footage shows that he did not call them fine people. He'd specifically stated the conservatives, not people. There were people at that location that wanted to keep statues up. They had nothing to do. They weren't marching with, they weren't a part of, they weren't holding hands, they weren't in lockstep with the people with the tiki torches and the 1930s and 1940s Germans that day. In the C-SPAN quote, it specifically reads that Trump condemned supremacists and bigoted people and everything 3 different times in the 1930s and 1940s Germans. The deceptive editing, you want to talk about deceptive editing, we can go, they said that Trump told everyone to inject Drano. You want to talk about deceptive editing? They don't give you the full context. Everything with Trump, he never called it a hoax. He was talking about the media. Deceptive editing, deceptive writing is the hallmark of the past 4 years. They had to prop up the Democratic Party, and they just had to do away with any semblance of journalism. And then they accuse James O'Keefe of being deceptive. He's far less. He engages in far less of that behavior because he doesn't need to. They're very proud. Like CNN officials, they're very proud that they worked to tank Trump's campaign. That's what they're there for. These people are activists. They're not necessarily journalists. Okay, so a journalist is going to keep the same. If they're outraged about the border, for example, they'll be outraged about the border with Biden, even especially when there are worse things taking place. Okay, not so. A journalist keeps an ethical standard, whether or not it's a Republican or Democrat in the Oval Office. That's not the way. That's not how journalists run nowadays. They published a Steele dossier. BuzzFeed published a Steele dossier. Their account was never suspended. New York Post publishes Hunter's emails. Oh my God, they suspend their account. Okay. There were articles that there was writing. Everything. I believe it was a Democratic staffer that stated that Trump called a country a you know what name. You have. There was no evidence of that. No evidence. No evidence. No nothing. And they still, basically, they're a bunch of hypocrites. Trump, there are about 10 things that Trump never said that they deceptively edited, wrote about, He never called the pandemic a hoax. He never called 1930s and 1940s Germans fine people. He never said inject Drano. He never, what else did he, there's a running tally of all his lies. His lies were like a quarter of them in the Washington Post, according to CBS, one researcher, was actually true, like categorically true. And then another quarter of them were it's just puffery and like exaggeration, like, oh, this is the best economy ever. We had record low unemployment. How many lies were told already by Biden's administration? You look what's taking place right now in Biden's administration. They just blame everything on supremacy. They've replaced Putin with supremacy. So anything that happens, it's not Trump. It's not, atrocities take place. Crimes take place in Democratic-run areas. It's supremacy. Nothing to do with Democrats. It's nothing to do with Democrats. It's not Biden's America. Oh well, you know what? It's Trump's fault. There's no actual accountability in terms of a standard. The same standard by which they judge Trump is not the standard by which they judge themselves. That's the point. And it's for historians or objective, observers of American politics, and these people believe that media and intelligence operatives media and intelligence operatives are objective. They don't understand that we live in a dystopian reality now, where one political side is embedded within, they've tried, every element of American society has tried to elevate one political narrative. And they say, well, Fox News does it. There are people on Fox News, like Chris Wallace, who were kind of never Trumpers. They didn't like Trump. There's no equivalent of Chris Wallace or a whole bunch of other people on MSNBC or CNN. There's nobody who's pro-Trump at the Washington Post, New York Times. You look at the apparatus, the public relations apparatus, the New York Times, Washington Post, Daily Beast, Vanity Fair, Esquire, the New Yorker, the Atlantic, Mother Jones, The Nation. We can go Time Magazine. You can go. It's endless. L.A. Times, every major newspaper in the country. Even CBS, ABC, NBC, they have a far more. They were always parroting in some way what CNN and MSNBC was saying. Intelligence operatives could lie openly, have their lies filtered through this entire public relations apparatus, and people would actually believe it without even questioning. So the Steele dossier was published by numerous publications. They never got in trouble. They circumvented legal repercussions because they said, the judges said, well, it was just it was actually the government was utilizing it, so there you go. Anyway, give me your thoughts below. They're going after James Okeef. Why? Because he told the truth. Because one CNN staffer told the truth. The truth about the Democratic Party, and this is not like hyperbole, the truth is catastrophic for them. That's why they have to, blame Putin, blame Russia. But here, just really quickly, Hillary Clinton's well-heeled backers have opened a new frontier in digital campaigning, one that seems to be inspired by some of the internet's worst instincts. Correct the Record, a super PAC coordinating with Clinton campaign, is spending some $1 million to find and confront social media users who post unflattering messages about the Democratic frontrunner. They literally created an army of paid bots, and Twitter said nothing. Give me your thought. And the article in the LA Times is below. Give me your thoughts below.